Okay, welcome to the 6P for week 4, my first podcast. All right, let's go through a few things. This is the second part of the problem, in which you had to edit your sound clips that you recorded the previous week. So we had to do a few things. First, we had to start a new session. We had to import the tracks, and we had to create new tracks in our sessions. So a lot of things to do there. Why are we teaching you all this? What's the purpose? Well, this goes way back because sound editing starts with somewhere, and voice has been always one of the consistent things for sound editing, and this will continue to be one of the things that we have to do over and over again, is to edit the voice. All right, so let's find out a little bit more about what's going on here. There's a long history of using narration, okay, telling stories through sound only. All right, and especially through the recorded word. This goes way back. All right, and in the 1930s we had what was called the talking books. Now they're known as audiobooks. It's basically the same thing. It was a government program for blind readers, basically. Now audiobooks or talking books, or whatever you want to call them, are used by everyone. Sometimes it's for those who cannot see too well or cannot read. Other times it's for convenience sake, when we're driving or we're on the train, and it's not going to be as convenient to read a book as it is to listen to it. Right? The other thing is that broadband has made streaming available almost 24 hours, 7 days a week, wherever you are. And so we can now stream not only music, but radio shows and programs. Okay? So this is one of the reasons. And there's a demand for audiobooks and for audio editors. So this is one of the reasons we did this. And radio shows have had a long history. In fact, in the 30s, which were the golden years of radio, radio was the primary source of entertainment. Television wasn't really that popular, and films, of course, were there, but again, it was radio. That was the daily entertainment, radio shows. And so a lot of time and investment went into making radio shows. Music, sound effects, narration, being able to tell a story convincingly. All right? So one of the most popular was this. It's called The War of the Worlds, and it was done by Orson Welles. All right? And when this show first was broadcast, there was a disclaimer that's saying it was just a radio show. However, many people tuned in late, and they actually thought that this was a real newscast. It was so convincing. It sounded like a newscast. All the sounds were there. The type of narration was there. The type of sounds that they were expecting, everything was there. And so they thought it was a real newscast of an alien invasion. All right? That's how powerful radio and sound can be. So let's listen to a little bit of this.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present Orson
So
Welles and the Mercury
this is the
Theater
beginning,
on air in the War
and
of the World
there's a
by
little bit of
H.G.
narration
Wells.
in the beginning here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the director of the Mercury Theater and star of these broadcasts, Orson Welles.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's, yet as mortal as his own.
Now, one of the things you
We
should
know
know
now that as human beings
is
busied themselves
his
about
pacing.
their various concerns,
So when he does his narration,
scrutinized and
he's not
studied.
rushing.
perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water.
The drama that's
Infinite
there is
complacence,
all in the
people
voice,
went to and fro of the earth
in
about
the
their
use of
little affairs,
pauses and the way he
serene
speaks.
in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. yet across an immense ethereal gulf. Minds that are to our minds as ours are to the beasts in the...
And that is just the introduction. So you can see and hear, narration is a very, very important part. And so this is why we have to do it. Now, a lot of times they didn't get it on the first take. They had to do cuts, and they had to edit it. And this is what we're going to be learning as well. All right, let's take a look at the next thing. The modern day version of this is called podcasting. And podcasts are available. One of the most popular, of course, which is locally produced, is the Mr. Brown Show. All right? And he uses comedy to get a message. And it's very popular. But there's nothing more than sound. So let's take a listen to what one of his podcasts is like. And let's listen for the audio, the narration, and how he does things.
Hi, welcome to the Mr. Brown Show. I'm Mr. Mark.
I'm Sam.
And this is Mark. Well, now this school very competitive, huh?
Yeah, that's why I need tuition.
No, regular tuition no longer enough. Is your child doing badly at school? Is your child stupid or lazy? Not scoring A1s? Then our tuition center is not for you. At Elite Globalist Tuition Center, we believe in only cultivating the best. Here at Block 103, Sengkang Vale, Hex 09133 in my bomb shelter cum storeroom, we make A-star students into A-superstar students.
My boy was only scoring 98 out of 100 for all his subjects. And even after I cane him daily, it didn't improve. But after send him to Elite, he now scores 99 out of 100. Plus, he stopped twerking. Thanks, Elite.
Okay, so you can hear that a number of things were being done. And we're going to explore some of the effects that you've heard, like the reverb and all this other stuff, in the next lesson. But let's get back. These are examples of radio shows, and this is one of the ways in which narration is used, and we have to edit. If you think that everything is done right on the first take, it isn't. Most of the time we have to do a lot of editing in the back. Okay? So let's see what we had to learn about. With audio content and producing audio content, we need to start with the basic setup. At the very least, you need to have your computer, you need to have a recording booth or a recording location that's in a quiet area, a decent microphone, and a DAW in which to record or to transfer your sounds into. You also ideally need 3 different people. Ideally, you need to have a voice actor who narrates the content, or you can have more than one voice actor. You also need a director, and the director's role is to really, well, tell the voice actor what to do. And then you need a sound engineer, and this person is the one who is responsible for recording everything, making sure that the sounds don't clip, there's no peeking out, that everything is being picked up. Okay? Now, let's move on to the next part, your encounter with Pro Tools. And what we have here is a typical mix screen. All right? And so this is what you were looking at in some ways. A lot of these are audio tracks. Okay, they all represent different types of audio tracks. These are called faders, and we control everything from here. So you'll be learning how to use this mixing window a little bit more. Right? There's also the edit window in which you dragged all your tracks into. Now, Pro Tools is a virtual recording studio, a digital audio workstation. And in some parts, we still use dedicated hardware for this because it is so important. This is one of the industry standards for audio editing. There's about two different types of audio suites that are used. Pro Tools is one. And so if you can get that one, you should be able to get anything else. All right. Every sound source can be isolated, and every sound element can be adjusted in terms of levels and all sorts of things. And we use the DAWs to help us do this. Right? So if you looked at this, for example, these are all the different audio tracks. And when we mix them properly, we adjust the audio levels. We mix it down into a single stereo track and push that out. And this is what gets heard on the radios, for example. All these separate tracks are mixed, the sound is balanced, and then it gets pushed out. All right? Okay, next thing. Destructive and non-destructive editing. Now, destructive and non-destructive editing is important to know. First of all, you should make a habit of saving everything, especially before you do anything major. But these two types of editing are important. When you do any editing that is going to be permanent to an audio file, all right, it can be destructive. You cannot return to the original file, right? So once you close the session, when you open it up, that's it. You're stuck with what you have, okay? Non-destructive means that even if you make changes to the audio file and you close your session, when you open it up, you can undo it, you can go back to the original, all right? So you'll need to learn which ones are destructive and non-destructive for the editing, right? The next thing is the different types of plugins. VST plugins, RTAS, TDMs, AUs, these are all different types. And they generally are non-destructive. So we use them to apply things like EQ, or reverb, or delay, okay? These are non-destructive. They can always be undone. They can be taken off of the track, right? So that's an example. You'll learn more about plugins on the next lesson, okay? All right, let's move on. So moving on to the summary of the interfaces. Actually, go back here. You have the trim tool, which is an important one. This allows you to adjust the length and to trim out your sound clips. All right. Pressing F6 is a shortcut, and you should get used to shortcuts because that will help you. All right. So you can see the trim. There's several. There's a standard, there's a TCE, and there's a loop. We only want to worry about the standard one today. We don't want to touch those other two. You'll get to them much later. All right. Next, we have the selector tool. Now, selector tool is very much like any other selector. You use it to highlight a certain amount of audio, and you can use then copy, you can paste it, you can separate it, you can cut it out, whatever you want to do with it at that point. All right? So the selector tool is a very useful thing. You'll notice it's over here, okay? And we're going to get into another one, the grab tool, one of the more useful features. The grabber tool, here we go, grabber tool. The grabber tool allows you to move. Okay, you grab onto a certain region and you can move it around on the timeline. In fact, sometimes you can even move it to a different track. All right? So the grabber tool, represented by the hand. So you'll see it up here. The grabber tool. Right here is the selector and, of course, the trim. And these three are very, very important. They're the three most important tools that you'll need. All right? Now, the next thing is modes. All right? And what you may have noticed is that modes affect how you can edit. Now, there's 4 different modes in Pro Tools, and you'll see the modes that look like this in the upper left-hand corner. All right? There's 4 modes. There's slip, shuffle, spot, and grid. And these are very, very important to know. So by default, you're in slip mode. And this allows you to move your audio tracks anywhere very easily. But the downside is you can't get too precise with it, which is why we have the other modes. All right? Shuffle mode restricts the movement of your regions. So they'll snap. Okay? It also allows you to insert regions into the spaces between other regions, right? And then you can shuffle things around. That's why it's called shuffle. Spot mode allows you to be very precise. And when you click on spot mode, it'll prompt you to specify a time code, okay, or a time location. And that's where you will insert your clip. Grid mode constrains the movement of your regions or your tracks to a grid, and there's 2. There's one that's relative and absolute. All right, so relative and absolute grids. You can define what you want as your grid. So let's take a look a little bit closer here. Grid mode is really important to help us with understanding where things snap. And so when you click on grid mode, you can then go into this area here, all right, and you can define your grid. And your grid can be up to 1 second, and it can be as small as 1 millisecond. All right? So very, very precise. You can also go by bars and beats, and you can also go by samples. So grid mode allows you some flexibility in how precise you want to be with your movements. Smart tool. The Smart tool is probably the best tool of all because it actually combines 3 tools into one. And you get it by clicking on this bar, or if you're in the Mac version, you'll notice a bar that goes over the top. You click on that, and you get it. And depending on where you put your cursor within the region, all right, the tool will change. If you put it at one end in the middle, it becomes the trim tool. If you put it in the corners, it becomes a fader. All right? You put it towards the middle of the whole thing, it becomes a grab tool. All right? So you have a lot of possibilities here. Okay? Now, you can also use a shortcut by pressing F6, 7, 8 all at one time. But I think just a click up here is probably faster than doing that. All right? So this allows you to do a lot of different kinds of editing. All right, let's look at the next thing, fades. Since I had mentioned fades in the last thing, we've got fade in, fade out, and crossfades. All right? And fade in, fade out, and crossfades allow you to manipulate your sound on the sound clip. All right? So for example, here, we can do this. Keep in mind, this is destructive. All right? So when you use this particular form of fade, it is destructive. You can undo it while your session is open. Once you close the session, that's it. You're fixed into this. So you want to be very precise with this. All right? The next tool is a scrub tool. And the scrub tool just looks like a speaker. Okay? And it allows you to kind of preview or scrub through the audio. This can be quite useful for you. All right? If you're trying to preview especially a small section of audio. You don't want to play the whole thing. All right. Automation. Automation, what is it? Well, it allows you to, automate a particular function. Panning or volume, for example. All right? And there's a couple ways to do this. One would be to use the pencil tool, which we have here in the pencil, and you just draw on your file, on your track, the volume. And then when you play it back, it will automatically adjust. All right? You can also record, which means that you can do it live. And there's 3 different modes of doing it live. You have your latch, your write, or your touch. Okay? And essentially what you do is you'll play it, and as the sound is playing, you will adjust your fader here, and it will move with it. So how do these things work? All right, let's take a look. There's a few modes here for this, and the first is read. And reading, of course, is just, it reads the automation that's there. That doesn't do anything. Touch is when it records automation only when the parameter is being modified or touched. All right? But other than that, it just reads. So if there's automation already there, it will read all of that. As soon as you stop, it goes back to normal. Okay? Latch is similar to the touch one, except after you've moved it. So if you've moved a volume from loud to middle, in touch, once you release it, it'll go back up to the loud. All right? Or it'll follow the automation that's already there. However, with latch, when you move it down, it stays there, and it becomes the new norm. All right? Write is destructive, and this will destroy anything. There is no reading whatsoever. All right? And it will destroy the previous data. So once you use write, it's destructive. You're not getting anything back, so that's it. All right? So be very careful when using write. Okay, and that pretty much brings me to the end of things. Your key takeaways for this hopefully should be that you are able to start a new session file, all right? and create new tracks, import your audio. You should be able to tell what the different kinds of tracks are, stereo and mono. You should be able to know what sample rate is and bit depth is, all right? And you should know how to bounce out now, okay? So digital WAV file using an MP3, all right? And you should hopefully know how to now save up and back up your session files, okay? So that's pretty much it, and I hope this was an informative 6P for you, all right? Thank you.